Welcome to Enlightenment Night. Probably need another introduction after that length of wait. Enlightenment Night, as May said earlier on, where people from varied walks of life come and talk about stuff they know about, stuff they're passionate about, stuff they think other people should know about. In my case, I'm Paul Hartigan, and I love models. As a business consultant, I had the opportunity over my career to work with many models. I'm talking, of course, about management models, ways of looking at business processes to help business people and those who advise them on how to improve them. I actually think they're pretty cool and sadly underutilized in the non-business world. So tonight I'd like to bring you some of them. And those that have worked out some of the stuff in the worksheet there will be a few steps ahead of me, so thanks very much for that. Let's start with the MABA analysis. MABA analysis was developed by McKinsey Consulting Group for General Electric back in the 1970s to help them to identify and prioritize which markets they wanted to target next. So it's a simple enough model in terms of the graphical representation. Markets are denoted by blue balls. The bigger the balls, the bigger the market. The higher the balls, the more attractive those markets are in terms of how quick they are to grow, how likely they are to be profitable. The balls to the right are those that are more exploitable by a business. Balls to the left are not as exploitable as balls to the right. Probably still pretty meaningless. So let's take an example. This is a MABA analysis completed for a single female in her late 20s. We're going to look at the markets available in the low market attractiveness, low business attractiveness. We have no surprises here really. We have a lot of GA fanatics. We have men who watch soaps. We have Zumba dancing men, Trekkies. Low on each front, and the strategy that should override here is one of avoidance. Moving across, equivalent levels of market unattractiveness, we have those in the resist quadrant. These markets, as I say, are not attractive, but they are readily available. On the basis of proximity, we find the work crowd and decent-looking neighbours can be quite readily approached. And X is a very small market, as you can see there, for most of us, but again, with a little bit of business development activity, you should find the doors can be opened there. But generally, by and large, this, although short-term gains are possible, it's not a quadrant that we should be investing any of our time in. So moving on, we're looking up, moving upwards in the market attractiveness. Here we see the classic desirables, members of royal families, wealthy business people, celebrities. But the issue is here, we're talking about the left-hand side of the screen, so these are markets that are not that readily available. Unless you have contacts, you would probably not make any headway. Then we see airline staff, obviously not as big a draw as back in the 70s, but still quite popular. And then legal professionals, I mean, well-educated, tend to have good earning potential, but the vocabulary and the accent represents too big a language barrier for most businesses. And if things ever did go sour, they'd fleece you in a divorce. So really we're left with nothing but the top right-hand quadrant to pursue. And here again, medicine, top points, followed closely by the dentist. And then with the price of land expected to soar again some stage in the future, we see the single farmers. But the issue with the single farmers, of course, is there is so few of them, given the agricultural consolidation that's taken place in the last 10 to 15 years. So hence the new vibrant activity we're seeing in the married farmers market. And then yoga teachers, obviously their centered spirituality and their bendy bodies make them very, very attractive and very, very approachable. And as you can see, it's a large market. There are actually now more yoga teachers in Ireland than dentists, doctors and farmers combined. So that's the MABA analysis. Hopefully that's starting to sink in. Moving to the next model on my list, we have lean thinking. So Muda, I don't know if there's any Japanese scholars in tonight, but Muda is the Japanese word for waste. And in the 1970s, Japanese businesses became obsessed by the concept of waste and trying to eliminate it from their manufacturing businesses. So we're talking about the likes of Sony, Toyota, the big car manufacturers. So basically what they try to do is they try to remove waste from their business processes. Waste is cost, waste is time, waste is the stuff basically that adds no value to the end product that you give to your customers. So I'm going to apply a little bit of theory here. This is lean thinking. This isn't actually supposed to be a funny slide, this is a serious slide. Basically, to talk about waste, we have three elements to waste. Process retardants. These are things that slow up your process. This is guys sitting on a production line doing nothing, waiting for the parts to arrive. This is downtime. This is machines breaking down. This is crappy supply parts coming in from your suppliers and holding you up and delaying your deliveries. Now, if you want to compensate for process retardants, you've only got one option in a manufacturing process, and that's to increase your inventory. In other words, have lots and lots of spare parts and have lots and lots of made-up examples of your final product sitting there on the ramp, ready to go when your orders fall down. So, high inventory is costly. High inventory costs money to store, and it actually is your money tied up. So what happens if we reduce inventory? Well, if you reduce inventory, that's all well and good. You've reduced the cost of it, but what you've done is you've exposed yourself to the risk that the process retardants are going to kick in. And those process retardants will then lead to delays in your delivery time. So you'll end up having dissatisfied customers, which over time can erode your market position in your brand. So that's not an option either. So lean, when applied to the process retardants, basically that's where you need to approach the problem from, allow you to address those, reduce your inventory, and in time reduce your delivery times. Again, let's take an example from a non-business world, because I can see a lot of you are falling asleep at me. So let's apply lean thinking to the, as applied to a process for meeting somebody special. So again, it does pretty much follow on from what I've presented to you already, with a few minor changes, I suppose. It's a far longer process. It takes a lot of time, and the stock and trade of the pursuit of somebody special isn't inventory, it's pain, as we all know. So we have process retardants as well, aplenty, when it comes to this particular business process. Does anybody want to contribute some of the things that slow up the process of meeting somebody special? This was some of your prep work. Any suggestions? Just shout it out.
Not living in the moment.
Not living in the moment. I can see heads nodding relating to that particular one. Man with beard?
Being on a dietary restriction.
Being on a dietary, as in you find it hard to go to the restaurants they want to go to and you have to forego dates, that kind of thing?
Yeah, and just even sort of finding a place to meet in the first place.
Really? Well, you could just go for a drink, couldn't you? You don't have to go straight for dinner. Any other suggestions?
Hanging out with attached friends.
Hanging out with attached friends. Come on, lad. Anybody could have come up with that one. Anything else? No? No. Well, what about
Being too picky.
being too picky? Selectiveness. Yeah, it is a problem, but you have to be selective, and we'll come to that later on. How about? This is just some research that I did myself. This isn't based on any of the management BS I was coming up with earlier on. What about married people? I mean, you meet married people all the time. You don't know it, of course, at the time, and they don't tell you for quite a while. But that can hold up the process of meeting somebody special. And how about age changers? Like people who you meet online, and everything is going grand until about 5 dates in, and then they tell you that they're 15 years older than you thought they were. That can slow things up. And, of course, bunny boilers. And then the sexually unsure. In fact, there's lots and lots of things that hold up the process of meeting somebody special. And applying the concept of lean to this particular problem, we need to resort to other tools. And one tool that can help us big time in the process is decision trees. So decision trees are, I don't know, they're called decision trees. They're called decision trees, and they're used in business to allow businesses to perform, to make recurring decisions in a faster, more quality-orientated way. So I've actually worked for Mercedes-Benz and designed a quality tree to help their brake assist call center people quickly diagnose why a car had broken down on the telephone. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply a decision tree to the process of reducing delays in meeting somebody special, which is the problem we're trying to solve here. So basically, I don't know if you can read this, but the step one on any process of meeting somebody special is to go on that first date. So again, homework here. When you go on that first date, what is the one thing that you really have to be deciding about on that first date? should you go on a second date? Yeah, but what is the more detailed level question you should ask yourself in order to come up with an answer as to whether there's a second date on the cards or not? Do you like the person? Great. That's a fairly straightforward question. It's a good one to ask. Anybody else put anything else down?
Do you trust him or her?
Do you trust him or her? If you can determine that, that's a really, really useful thing to be able to determine on the first date. Down the back, you were shouting? Is he heterosexual? Are you reading your own question, or did you pick it up from the girl beside you? I don't think you did. I think it's your own. It's a good question. And again, I don't know if there are any tips for that. Any other questions?
Is she a psycho?
Is she a psycho? I think this is probably the closest, because the key question to ask yourself on a first date is, are there any signs of weirdness? Were there any signs of weirdness in that first date? If there were signs of weirdness, however small, you've got one option. You have to exit that particular process immediately. If there are no signs of weirdness, of course, you can, as we heard over here, go on a second date. When you're on that second date, what is the key question to be asking yourself in order to decide how you progress? The next question is, were any of the personal details shared on the second date inconsistent with personal details shared on the first date? If that is the case, and you have to be watching out for that, you can have fun, you can make a little bit of small talk, but this is what you need to be thinking about. You have to exit this process immediately. If all personal details were consistent with the first date, you can move to stage 3, which is third date, yes, but it's a bit of a kicker here. Third date, you need to share some of your weirdness with the other person. You do that, and the key question after that particular date is, has he or she called you since that date? If no, you've been exited. If yes, then you can introduce her to your friends, or him, in that case. And when you introduce them to your friends, the key question to be asked here is, have your friends mentioned him or her since? If no, I'm afraid you've got no choice but to exit the process. This is about accelerating decisions and getting the quality outcome as quickly as possible. If your friends have mentioned him, good or bad, go on the lash. This is step 5 of the 5-step process. It's very, very important. One thing needs to be on your mind when you're going on the lash. It's not about having fun. It's about determining whether there are any signs of addictive or violent tendencies. If there were, you should exit that process. If no, he or she's a keeper. So just to recap, folks, we've seen tonight that the MABA analysis allows you to prioritize and target markets. Decision trees can help you to weed through the chaff and accelerate the process of coming to a decision, which gets you the lean outcomes of minimal pain, minimal contact with process retardants, and minimal hunting time. I've been Paul Hartigan. I love models, and hopefully you do too now.